Hello and welcome to this episode of I Don't Know Jack About Parenting, where today we're going to be talking about the inevitable, virtual learning. And we have a special guest, Lily Herrera, who is going to give us her expertise as a homeschool mom. So the big question is this: how are parents like us, who don't have a manual, who are doing the best we can, who feel as though we aren't enough, how are we going to raise healthy, happy children who we are proud of and still keep our sanity in that process? That's the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. My name is Ryan Roy, and welcome to I Don't Know Jack About Parenting, a podcast for parents who are being real with themselves. Hello, and welcome back to this episode of I Don't Know Jack About Parenting, where today we're going to be talking about virtual learning, and I have a very special guest. She is a friend of mine. I've known her for a number of years now. She is an excellent mom, but she homeschools, right? And that's why we have her on today, because a lot of people are being forced into homeschooling right now, or virtual learning. And her name is Lily Herrera. And Lily, just welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Ryan, for having me. I'm really glad to be here.
So, like I said, you are, first of all, I want you to know, parents out there who are listening to this, who are thinking, I work a job and I have these kids at home now and I don't know what to do. And you may have a spouse, you may have some assistants, you may have some stuff. I want you to know that Lily is a single mom and has chosen to do homeschooling. She is a mom of a up and coming rising 8th grader as the school year is about to start. So Lily, as you are about to approach this school year, and you have your format, the question I'm going to ask you: if you were traditional schooling, which you had done with your son up until just a few years ago, knowing what you know now as a homeschooler, what kind of tips or advice would you give to that parent who is being thrown and thrust into this situation?
First and foremost, let's deal with the mindset, because we're not teachers, but we are influencers. And who do we influence the most? Our children. And during the school year, we hand them off to teachers and they teach them. And we're comforted knowing that they're feeding this knowledge into our children. And then we come and pick them up. And then, the home life goes on. Now we're thrusted in a situation where all the parents with children are now teachers. And we're like deers in headlights. It's like, oh my God, and I have to stay home. I have to teach. And what if he has questions? And so it's scary, but I want to say that first and foremost, come in a place of calmness, and that everything is going to be okay.
Yeah,
no matter what. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, and it is, and I love what you just said there, is coming to a place of calm, right? Because the strongest, in my coaching practice, right, when I talk about the strongest energy wins. And if you have a nervous energy, your children are going to pick up on that. If you have scattered or worried energy about you, they're going to pick up on that, and it's not going to be as conducive for learning. So I love that you brought up that point.
That's correct. And Brian is my coach as well. So yes, calm and mindset, that's a big part of what leads to success. And your children look up to you for comfort, for safety and security. And if you're worried and how are we going to do this? And oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. Your kids are watching this. And so they're already going into the school year stressed and perhaps feeling defeated. And you don't want that for your child. So first and foremost, I would say deal with your mindset first. I know some school districts have already started. So if you're already there, then find a place of calmness and kind of backtrack. It's not too late. Even as a homeschool mom, when I started, I didn't have all the answers. I felt anxious, but again, I had to shield my son from the anxiety and just kind of, okay, I'm going to get the information. I'm going to ask other homeschool parents or other people that were considering, what are your concerns, or how do you combat the anxiety, and how do you keep it together? And we realized that all of us had to start at one point or another for whatever reason. For myself, as a single mom, and I come from a very small family, so I wanted to make the most of my child's childhood and be a participant and be present. And so while he was going to school, I wanted to go to the assemblies. I wanted to volunteer. Now that we homeschool, I'm beginning to be able to see his interests and his style of learning. So that also helps me adapt to how I can help him grow and enrich his learning process. But as far as mindset, first of all, recognize we're not teachers, and we're all thrusted into this circumstance. So we're not going to be the experts when we first go in, but we all have been to school at one time or another in our life. And so we do know from experience the classroom setting. However, you're now in the home, there's probably not going to be classmates unless you have siblings. And I think that's going to be the hardest part for your child. And so one of my recommendations, if you do have friends that live close by and your kids go to the same school, build a support with your parent friends. Most of you have gone to the same schools or transferred to different campuses together, depending on the age of your children. And, some parents may have a forte in math and science, others in writing and reading, others in arts and crafts. And maybe, if it's a small enough group and you feel comfortable, after you have your block of scheduled learning with the school, maybe go spend an hour or two after school at a classmate's house where you can do an arts and crafts. Or, such and such, Jane Doe over here, she's a brainiac when it comes to math. Our kids are struggling with math. Okay, I'm going to have a tutor session this day, this hour, every week.
Yeah.
So the kids have that ability to have that camaraderie and learn. And that, that's just an example. And if you don't feel comfortable, there's always Zoom. But, it's a different environment that's not classroom, but they're still learning.
Yeah. So, and that's one of the things that, this virtual learning is happening now. And I love what you said, something about learning styles. And I'm going to touch back on what you said about, getting the kids together also, because it's something that is a new invention, right? Necessity is the mother of invention. And there's these things called learning pods that exactly what you're saying. And I encourage parents who feel comfortable with each other to create something like this. It's a great point you made. So first, learning style. So as we were discussing right before we got on here, so I gave you an idea of what we're facing as parents as you're homeschooling, right? You're kind of out. This isn't your realm right now. It's not what you're dealing with. We're in a new norm, but you're just going along as scheduled at some level, right? So what we have to do is we have a schedule. We got it from the county and from the school this week, and our kids do have to be in front of the computer for an extended period of time during the day. So I love what you said about learning style, because even though the school is doing it this way, if you're observant enough as a parent, like start picking up on what works for your kid. If your kid's getting antsy, being in front of the computer, talk to the teachers, get involved with them that way and say, hey, look, this isn't working for him, but this is what he's doing. It's on in the background. We're doing extra work after school because he's not capable or she's not capable of sitting still in front of a computer without the interaction of children around. And just like we're adapting as virtual learners, the schools are going to be on a learning curve, right? They have never gone through this. So although they've set up a system to begin with, I really encourage the parents who, think there should be a set plan and it should work perfectly to be a little bit more flexible, knowing that they are learning as they go too, and they're going to do what's best for all students overall, but it doesn't mean at home that you can't adjust your own children according to what works best for them at home.
Exactly. And, it's also an opportunity to get that customized learning. And when I say customized, I'm not saying, go against the district or whatever mandates or programs are set in place. But this is the opportunity to see where your child really thrives, where he needs help. And that, and I'm saying he or she, but, you can find enrichment programs online to supplement school. There are online games that can supplement learning. And if there's certain interests, for example, if you have a child that's into sciences, there's programs out there, there's kits that you can buy, and just so that they can go ahead and continue to develop that learning on their own, if that's their interest. If they're into arts, there's programs, and you can find programs online, STEM programs online, and there's always something there. But if you observe what your child gravitates to, then you can really help them on their way to, perhaps a career. Well, and I'm not saying that at kindergarten they should already know that they want to be a doctor, but you get the gist of what I'm saying.
Well, my
some
son
kids
wanted to be a dinosaur, so
right. Some kids are very mechanically inclined, and STEM programs, are something that they really gravitate to, where other kids, they just pick up a book and they just, soak it all in. They can read a book from cover to cover without anybody telling them they have to, because they enjoy reading. They love, imagining the scenes that they're reading. They love sharing what they just read. And some of them, thrive at writing, creative writing, writing essays. And so there's, stuff that you can do to help make the experience more palatable for them. And at the same time, let them just develop into the person that, they were really born to be.
So as you're saying that, it makes me think of some of the things I've done with my own son, Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one day, my wife is very regimented. She likes the curriculum. She wants him to do the curriculum. And we had spent some time, he and I, one day, he's like, Dad, I want to write a book. He was reading a book series that, I forget what it is off the top of my head now. This is a couple years ago. And he was like, well, I want to write a book, because in this comic book, it was kids who were writing the comic book and the words were spelled wrong and everything. And he goes, well, I want to write a book. And I said, well, let's write a book. And we spent like 4 hours on a Saturday.
Oh, wow.
Writing, and he was illustrating, and he was doing it. Dad, how do you spell this? How do you think it's spelled? But he's having a blast, like 4 hours straight, writing like a 7-8 page book. And at the end of it, she goes, okay, now we have to do homework. You have all these worksheets to do. And it was just extra practice for school. And I was like, he's done. He just had a blast. Didn't know how much he learned.
Mm-hmm.
So don't think we have to strictly stick to the curriculum. If the teachers are saying, hey, they have to write this, and you end up doing a side project for 4 hours that they absolutely love doing, mm-hmm. especially on these younger children, right?
Yes.
And I have a 4th grader, 8th grader, maybe a little bit different. High schooler has to do what the assignment is. But on these younger kids, be really flexible in this. And I'm sure the teachers, if you just show that this child wrote a book, are going to be excited that they were practicing those skills, not necessarily having to do the worksheet.
Yes. I found that my son, he does not care for the reading and writing aspect of schoolwork. He can do it. He used to love to do it when he was younger. Now it's just like, oh gosh, really? Do I have to? But I've found that he loves reading up on technology. Mm-hmm. So he sends me articles that he has read on the upcoming, phones that are coming, or a new system that, of programming that's on the horizon. Things that I wouldn't think to read. He's reading this, and he's sending me these links. Hey, Mom, check out this article. and tell me about this article. And he can tell you what the article is about. And so in speaking with the teacher I report to for homeschooling, it's okay as long as they're reading
Mm-hmm.
and they're learning and they're understanding the information. That is reading comprehension.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to get that's like another comic book, no, yeah, it's reading.
It's reading, they're practicing, they're learning new words, right? They're
exactly.
building vocabulary, and you think, oh, that's just for fun, but they're reading. As you say that, I always, give kudos to my own mother. I told her when I was young, I didn't like reading out loud because the other kids, when they read out loud, it seemed like they did it at a much faster speed and they were more confident in it. And it was one of the things that I wasn't necessarily confident in. And I used to come home and tell my mom, first and second grade, I don't know how to read. I don't know how to read. She knows, you know how to read, fine. And what she started doing was, I always liked sports. So she got me the kids' Sports Illustrated and those highlight magazines and, Boy's Life or whatever version of that is,
right.
back then.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would sit there and read them, front to back. And, it wasn't until years later, she goes, yeah, you always said you couldn't read, but I'd buy you these things you had interest in and you wouldn't put them down.
Right.
And, she was wise enough to understand that. So I love what you said. If he's reading an article that he has interest in and able to comprehend and explain it to you, then that's all that really matters. We're practicing a skill that we'll use for life.
Exactly. And you touched on learning styles, and you'll see that, some kids in the home, they'll get a little more comfy.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's not hindering their learning, whereas myself, as I got older, not in school, but at home, for me to do homework, I always had music in the background,
Mm-hmm.
whether it was in my ears on a headset or just playing in the background. Music always helped me stay focused. And for my son, it's usually like a tapping of a pencil.
Okay.
Or he may just stretch out on the couch and he'll have the computer next to him, but he's taking it all in. He's not snoozing. He's not watching TV. He's watching. Initially, it was a rough start where, I would leave the room and then all of a sudden I'd come back and, the computer's on one end of the room and he's playing with his Lego sets, building something. And it's like, hey, get back to work. And so, but I had to learn to watch him and monitor him and to see what his style is. And his style is he's kind of laid back. There'll be times where, and I've seen this with some men, my uncles, my dad, where they will cover their eyes with their arm and just lie back, but they're listening. They're paying attention. They're not asleep. They're not tuning out. That's just the way they relax. And they just kind of put the arms up and it's just like, okay, I'm soaking it all in.
Yeah.
And then, when it's like the recording ends or the video ends or the teacher finishes the lesson, he's like, oh, okay. And then he goes on to the next one. So I know he's paying attention and I know he's learning, but it took me a while to allow him to do that because I was like, no, go sit at the desk. Go do this. No, you can't lean. You can't lie down. No, you can't put your feet on the chair. But I had to learn to let him relax because he's still learning. And, and that was hard for me. Yeah. But once I realized that, okay, now the newness of being at home, and he thought at first it was like born free where he could just do whatever he want. Homeschool meant, vacation never ending. And it was like, no, son, you're in school and I'm the principal. So, and then I had
I can use a ruler.
Exactly. We have corporal law. And so, but he learned and we both adapt. And so, I think if you learn your child's style, some will need more structure than others. Others work better independently. But you'll be able to see the more you watch your child and observe their learning habits and how they thrive and some of the obstacles and hurdles that they encounter, then together you can find the solution. Whereas, in the classroom, sometimes you have 20 to 30 kids, well, at least here in LA. And so, it's kind of hard to give that one-on-one. But here's the opportunity for a parent to observe how their child learns and then help them enrich that learning and development.
Yes. So what I'm hearing from you is observe and don't put them into a box, right? So I think we were put into boxes as children, and now there's all types of different learning styles. NATO and corporations are going to this big open atmosphere and big bag chairs and just not cubicles, but a big open concept where people could come and go and wear what they want to and be comfortable as long as they're productive. Is don't put them into that box that we were put into, or at least you and I, right?
Right. As dinosaurs.
So allow them, observe them, allow them, see what works for them, see what doesn't work for them, but don't put what we believe should work for them onto them. As long as they are learning, let's not create that animosity, that frustration. Like, how come you're not sitting? Put your feet on. So as I'm saying this, it reminds me. I took typing in high school. It always said you had to have your feet flat on the floor.
Yes.
Your posture had to be a certain way, right? If my typing teacher was, could see how I sit around on my computer, lounge around on the couch like you just described as a full adult. But I just remember, and they had corporal law back then, and I just remember, oh gosh, I'm telling you, I'm sitting there with my legs crossed one day, but I was like that quiet kid that just, got by. He did okay. But the kid behind me was a troublemaker. And I remember him kicking him underneath the desk with everything he had. And he says, uncross your legs. That's not how you sit. And there I was with my legs crossed. I'm like, I had legs uncrossed, sit straight up because I didn't want to get kicked. But we don't have to. That's not, that's kind of forcing people into learning a certain way. And to this day, I still enjoy. As we're talking now, my legs are crossed under my head. Right? It's just how I'm comfortable. When I'm sitting at home, I always have my legs up on an ottoman. I always have my legs crossed up on the ottoman. That's where I am comfortable in my state of relaxation and bringing things in. So don't think it has to be a certain way. So I'd like to transition into that because you made another good point. You said I would go into his room and he would be across the room playing Legos, which means that you have a dedicated learning space. You want to talk a little bit about that and what maybe to expect, or maybe some pointers on to create that learning environment for your child at home?
Well, I don't really think it was dedicated. Initially, it was, we're going to sit together at the table, or you can sit across from me at my desk, and or we can sit together in the living room. And, I'm a single mom, and I'm also a real estate agent. So a lot of times I work in my office. And so he would come with me and we would both be sitting at desks and he would be working. So we really didn't have a dedicated space. But in homeschooling, he has deadlines and commitments that he has to meet. So that there's a difference there. So he wasn't really, confined to a time block to get certain things done. And he also went to an enrichment program twice a week for socialization, where it was a classroom setting. But initially, like I said, everybody has to start somewhere. And I spoke to a good friend who has 6 children, and she homeschooled before me.
Wow.
And she runs a business, and she travels, and yet somehow she's able to make it work, she and her husband. And so I started with her. And she said, well, first, see what works, kind of like what I'm passing on to you. See what works for your son. It's kind of like an unschooling, because now it's being done at home. And so that's kind of where do you want to start? And he's like, I'm comfy in my room. And so initially he was sitting on a chair and sitting and doing the work. But then, I would get caught up on doing my stuff. And then, I'd come in and, the sound of Legos, right? It's a little faster. You can hear the shuffle.
Well, with the 3-year-old, I really know the sound because it's like a big
Exactly.
Because there's a big bucket and they just get dumped, and you're like,
Exactly.
Daddy, I want to play Legos.
Exactly. So you know the sound. So,
Did you
as
ask me
parents,
before the mess? Mhm.
so as parents, we kind of know when there's just, that quietness, that
Yeah.
stillness, and you just kind of like, something's going on. And for me, it was just, I heard the Legos. I'm like, wait a minute. And so that's when I saw, I'm like, what are you doing? Oh, yeah, I'm listening. I'm like, no, I could obviously see from the structure that he built that there was no attention being paid to the lesson.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would pop in more frequently. And then once he got into the swing of things and the rhythm that worked for him, then he took it upon himself to come into my space. Well, he wanted that camaraderie, or to feel that he wasn't isolated. And so that's when he started coming into the living room, working at the table, or being at my desk, coming with me to the office, and so I kind of let him pick where he wanted to work. But the commitment and the discipline, that was something that in time, within a few months, then he really came into it. I didn't say, by a week, you got to buck down and do this. It was a gradual change. And that's what children are facing right now, regardless of the school age. If you were going to school and now you are thrusted in a homeschool situation or a virtual learning situation, it's not going to happen overnight. And so as parents, we have to recognize that, not only is this something that we have been thrusted upon, it's been thrusted upon our children. And they're going to make the transition as well. And so we have to recognize that, there's this unschooling that happens so that they can adapt. And my friend, she helped by saying, once in a while, you're going to have to get out of the house.
Yeah.
As a homeschooler, I let my son get up later than most kids. This year, his classes start at 9, but before they didn't start until much later. So I let him get up at 9. And, after a class or two, we'd go out for a walk, or we'd go play, go for a drive, run some errands, and then we'd get back and he'd do some more schoolwork. But, being on virtual learning doesn't mean that you're on lockdown per se as a kid. They do need to play, whether it be the backyard, going to a friend's house, even just going to a relative, just to drop off something. They need to get out of the house. And if there's something that they enjoy playing, let them play. And if there's a chance of getting a walk or a run or some kind of playtime before school starts, because most children, before they enter middle school, they do have that playtime before school starts.
Mm-hmm.
It's not wake up, eat breakfast, sit down.
Yep.
It's they get to run and jump. So if you're able to do that, and if they don't have siblings, as parents, we got to step in. And we got to, either walk with them, play with them. If you have a Wii, do they still have Wii's?
Well, you'll laugh because we have a Wii in our house.
I don't know. I've never had one. That's why I'm so out of touch.
So I don't know how old Wii's are, but we've had this Wii since even before he was around.
Yeah, well, dust it off and play with your kids.
Yeah, I actually just referenced Wii bowling tonight because we're going through thunderstorms, and the little one hears the thunder. He gets a little scared, and I said, "That's just God bowling." And he laughed, right? And he laughed, and I told him, your brother plays the bowling because we play as a family every once in a while, right? So,
right.
So he laughed and said that. So, well, you said so many good things there, and I want to touch base on a couple of them. One of them was,
sure.
Hey, be realistic, parents. What I heard is be realistic. You started at the beginning to see what works, observe your kid, learn their learning style. And this doesn't happen in one sitting. It happens over time. And you said that it may take a few months for you to learn your child's learning style. So don't have your expectations too high that it's supposed to be a certain way. I think we've both said that in different ways on this podcast episode. But So what I'm hearing is just be patient with them, be observant, hit them with a lot of love. And I love what you just said here is, right, get them moving, right?
Hmm.
Get them out, get them interacting if possible. Part of the whole reason we're not in school is because of, we are supposed to be isolating, right? We're in a pandemic.
Right.
So I love the idea of being close to the families that are doing the right thing, or you feel are doing the right thing. If you're close enough and you feel comfortable to create those pods, two or three
Hmm.
students that get together. I know my wife and I are talking to. We have a small group of
Good.
parents of we're talking about at least one day a week getting the four boys together. They're all best friends, and going
Hmm.
for a hike, going to the park, going to a pool, doing something where it's kind of like their recess or their PE time. So it's not 100%. It's school related, right? This is your
Hmm.
time dedicated on Wednesday afternoons at this time, and one of us four parents will take all four boys. But I don't want it to be, hey, we're doing math in that time. I want them to enjoy and socialize and enjoy each other. So you said so many
Right on.
good things there. Are there any final thoughts, one last tidbit, anything you would like to share with the audience that's coming off the top of your head?
I would say, as a homeschool mom, in spite of, some of the hurdles and, some of the anxieties that I initially had, in hindsight, I would say the best experience as a parent is to be able to have that extra time with my child, to see them grow, to see them learn, to see those aha moments. Um, those are things that, we really don't get to see. And so during this time that, we're inconvenienced, some people have to give up work. Um, some people don't have anybody else to watch their kids. And, there's some kids that have limitations as far as language or having, a computer at home to do these things. And so I think, being able to ask for help is key. And, initially you wanted to just say, I am willing to hear me roar, I can do it all. But then, within a couple of weeks, I'm like, if I don't ask for help, it's not helping my son. So get that help, take it in stride, enjoy the time that you have with your kids. Do not let them feel like they are a burden. Don't put that heaviness on your child. Nobody really asked for this. I made the choice, but parents are now in a situation where it has been thrusted upon them to take on the role as teacher. The child didn't ask for that. So as parents, we need to just make the best out of the situation that is handed to us and just let our kids be kids. And so just enjoy that time together, because, we've gotten to a point in this life where we miss out a lot because we're all working. We're all in the rat race. It's moments when you see them do things, it's just like, wow, wow, and you'll be glad that you have this time together in spite of, whatever chaos is going on in the world. As long as your child feels safe and feel that they're in an environment where all they have to do is focus on learning and being a kid, that's golden.
Yeah. So thank you for those words of wisdom, right? We're all being thrust into this and not making our children feel as burden. And one of the things, um, I say in coaching sometimes, a lot of people say, well, I have to do this, I have to do that. And if we could just change that word to get, like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I have to do this homeschooling thing. You get to spend that extra time. You get to see some of those milestones or breakthroughs or aha moments that you just described. So, if you take out the have to and say, I
Mm-hmm.
get to do some of these things,
Mm-hmm.
I'm in a position to witness some of these things. It was kind of a slowdown and a break. And I know a lot of people are, having some other challenges outside of this, but
Mm-hmm.
if we could just, focus on our children in this time, and when we're with them, show them our best self
Mhm.
despite all the challenges, I think we're all going to get through this together. So Lily, thank you so much for coming on. I knew this would be great. I knew you would drop some golden nuggets. But could you share a little bit to the listeners, because she is an amazing mom, but she is also an amazing professional. And as she said, she's in real estate and she's in the Los Angeles area. If someone needed some assistance finding, buying, selling a home, how could they get a hold of you?
The best way to reach me, off the top of my head, would be either to tap into my Google page, which is Realtor Liliana Herrera.com, and that's Realtor LILIANAHERRERA.com, or you can send me an email at lilianaherrera@kw.com, LILIANAHERRERA@kw.com. I feel like I was in a spelling bee. But you can call me, and you will get exceptional service, because I believe that exceptional service is the standard no matter the price point. Because no matter the price point, it's a huge purchase. It's a big life decision. So dollar amount, no matter what the price, when you're buying a home, something that big, you deserve quality service and a professional, rewarding experience. So if you need help, I'm here to help you. If you know somebody, I can help no matter the situation. First-time buyer, looking to relocate, downsize. If you're in a situation where you're finding that home payments are not manageable and you want to refi or just sell, I'm here to help you, and I can be discreet. So we can help your situation no matter what.
Fantastic. And all of that will be in the show notes, so you could go find those on your favorite podcast platform that you're listening on. Thank you so much, Lily. I don't know jack about parenting. I definitely don't know jack about virtual learning. I've just learned a little bit about homeschooling, and we will see you guys in the nenext episode. Do you want to be the dad you wish you had? If so, go get my free book, Be the Dad You Wish You Had, at BeTheDadYouWishYouHad.com. Inside, you'll find my most effective 40 tips to quickly and easily transform yourself into the ideal dad. Go to BeTheDadYouWishYouHad.com now and get it while it's free.